Okay, here we go. Today's podcast is the Kimmel Saga. And why I've started this is Kimmel was removed due to business fear and political use of a horrible event, an assassination of a right-wing influencer. What reasons caused Kimmel to be reinstated a week later? Are right-wing governments no longer hiding their dirty laundry because this post-truth world produces greater shtick than rational fact? Today I want to discuss for 30 minutes a range of items that would be considered politically and practically probably unpalatable. The podcast is called Being Fucking Blunt. To use this expletive is to warn people that this is an adult podcast for people with thin skins and who lack ability to be rational, should steer clear. Hold on, I'll just have to deal with real life issues. Hold on a moment. What's up? Well, I'm back and we've got leaks in the garage. Anyway, with all these problems, the world's transformed to a binary place where work practice is considered harmful and work epitomizes tolerance and fairness that we should expect from humanity, I would have thought. I'd like to break the work rules and look at the slovenly, unwoke, derisive fashion that they've intrude on reality, to call out bigots, unfairness, and stupidity clearly with ultimate prejudice. I will copy Sky News in the way they bend reality to cater for their business and conservative lobbying. I will, however, be guileless to do what they say, that is, be bigoted but speak truth that people need to hear to realize what rubbish Sky and Trump keep keeping on the loony left actually comes directly from Sky and Trump domains. So back to our subject today. ABC suspended Kimmel show in mid-September for a few days after a controversial monologue that mentioned Charlie Kirk's suspected killer and the right-wing reaction to Kirk's murder. Two days later, the FCC chair, Brendan Carr, on a conservative podcast, threatened to pull ABC affiliate broadcast licenses in response. From September 17 to September 22, 2025, the American Broadcasting Company and its corporate parent, the Walt Disney Company, suspended production of the late night talk show Jimmy Kimmel Live, following criticisms from conservatives and public pressure from Trump administration officials over Jimmy Kimmel's comments. It seems there's been a prior situation with Colbert. The decision was made while Paramount, owner of CBS, was in the process of closing a multi-billion-dollar merger with the movie studio Skydance, which required the approval of Federal Communications Commission's FCC. And days after CBS and Paramount agreed to pay $16 million to settle a lawsuit by President Donald Trump, a settlement that Colbert had criticized on the air on the 14th of July 2025 as a big fat bribe. As a result, the decision attracted significant controversy and criticism, and according to the Hollywood Reporter, news of the show ending was met with shock and disgust from politicians and entertainers. Now, despite the fact that The Late Show was number one in this time slot, journalist Bill Carter, a long-term observer of late night television industry, compared the cancellation to CBS cancellation of the successful Smothers Brothers comedy hour in 1969 due to pressure from the Johnston administration. I have some guests today. We've got on the screen Glenn Tamlin, friend and activist, familiar with being blunt as he's previously participated in my broadcast. Con over there, who's turning his head and running around in the background. Uh, how, he asks many questions, ones we often feel that are confusing and often unasked because we may think they're too simple or may have obvious answers. But it's important to ask those questions because it is too complicated out there. So, Glenn, what do you think's happening with Kimmel? And is all the future media going to be silenced by a conservative muzzle?
Um, well, only in America. It's not a clear sign of it happening in every country. I think the Kimmel case was a little bit different. It was that very sore wound of Charlie Kirk's death, and maybe the way he handled it was a little bit inappropriate. But the threat to remove their broadcast licenses was something I think that was new, and that I think is why the his dismissal was triggered so quickly, and then it took a public backlash to reverse it. The situation with Colbert might be different. Maybe he was looking to move on anyway, and he's not leaving straight away. But yeah, there's at the moment certainly the US administration is rogue, and they're doing things that in any other time, even with a right-wing administration, would have been regarded as unthinkable and illegal. So those businesses in the US that are directly subject to that, I think partly the Kimmel decision was just that network looking at their bottom line and going, no, we're not doing this. And then only the public pressure reversed it.
Yeah, well, I mean, he came back quite strongly after that, and it seems like things are back in balance, but I'm not quite sure that that threat is not something that's going to be held, like sort of Damocles over every single person that's out there who's willing to make a comment.
Well, obviously that can only apply to broadcast corporations that need licenses, so it doesn't apply to individuals. But yeah, there's been some suggestions of threats to bloggers and things from the Justice Department, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem to me that uh, there is uh, open or free speech anymore. I mean, the right has often claimed that there's free speech, but there doesn't seem to be free speech when there's a threat of cancellation.
Yeah, well, the whole free speech argument in the US is interesting because the Constitution literally says the government can't make laws infringing free speech. This is grey zone. This is, we threaten you to threaten your free speech rather than actually writing a law. So a lot of this isn't clear cut, unfortunately. And then if you have a Supreme Court that's not willing to vigorously stand up for it, things get messy.
So, do you think that's actually going to happen here? Do we have a problem here in terms of how um, we're not persecuting Sky News, for example?
No, we don't have the same problem. Firstly, we have a high court that's quite independent and neutral, which is not the case in the US at the moment. Our freedom of speech things aren't codified in single constitutional amendments. They come from the entire body of the British common law, so it's much harder to unravel. And in Australia, Sky News is fringe in a way that Fox News isn't in America. So no, we're not in the same situation. We've got some elements that are a bit unpleasant to look at, but we're not in that circumstance at all.
How is Sky News and 3AW fringe?
Because
Con,
they're not the majority of the media that people watch.
Con, I,
Who's fantastic.
I mean, I hear from you regularly that, oh, look at what these guys are saying.
Rage Radio. Fantastic.
But you don't watch it because you believe in it.
No. I watch it for a laugh. But 3RW has a specific audience, and I was surprised and horrified that their ads. I've never heard of a rental insurance agency. Like they obviously they cater for the more wealthy elderly folks. So the ads are Porsches, Maseratis, rental insurance businesses. So their audience obviously is 65 plus.
Oh, I think the thing is you're looking at a conservative perspective, and they layer all of that from a perspective of, aspirational. You want to see that these people have money, have whatever, have the wealth. That's not necessarily 65-year-olds plus. I mean, it can be basically younger people, but people who are more interested in themselves than they are interested in community.
No, no one's ever explained to me the Australian Liberals always are an aspirational party. What does that mean? Everyone's aspirational, aren't they? Everyone
Uh,
wants to get better, and move forward. But the Liberal Party is an aspirational party because the Labor Party isn't really.
well, I guess I'm not here to explain the Labour Party or the Liberal Party. I am looking to, understand why we have a bunch of people out there that are, quite able to tell lies, present facts, facts, facts that are not really facts, and influence people without being called uh, to some kind of standard. I mean, when for Trump, he managed to get $16 million out of uh, one particular company because he is in power, and he doesn't like being criticized, and he has the ability to push that button.
Mm. Like what strikes me with Trump in the US isn't Trump himself. It isn't even the circle of people around him. Other countries have got that. I expected a hell of a lot more pushback from things like the people who work in the Justice Department, people in the military, things like that. I was almost expecting the Justice Department en masse to say, no, we're not doing that, and telling the Attorney General where she can shove it. That hasn't happened.
It is kind of surprising how a lot of this basically seems to have pushed along the same fashion as how Hitler's moved into power in the 1930s. Right?
Mm.
He
The
seems to,
similarities.
yeah, they're striking similarities, and if I get shut down because of that, that would be interesting.
Particularly since you're not in America.
Yeah, yes. I mean, I think what we signed some deal with America recently, as in a day or two ago. Um,
For development of rare earth minerals and things. Yeah.
yeah. So, yeah, I'd like to see them pull that uh, uh, contract and see whether that changes matters. Just because, for example, recently there was a ABC, Australian Broadcasting Corporation employee that basically got shut down in the middle of getting Trump to explain why his family was making so much money out of activities that are, not supposed to be part of uh, reigning president's capability.
Well, my favourite subject, history.
Yes,
This has got a long history of political interference, a long history. So, this isn't new. This has happened all the time. Oligarchical dominance of the political system up there has been like that for hundreds of years.
what you're saying is this is not unusual. This is
No,
normal practice.
correct. That's
Yeah.
why is everyone shocked? This is how it's done.
Yeah, over the longer historical perspective, yeah, this is only really shocking because in our lifetime we haven't seen much of this. But we've lived in rather privileged times.
I guess the thing I'm worried about is the fact that more people aren't calling this out. They talk about it in kind of hushed tones because they don't, it's not that important, but it is. it is ultimately, if the media doesn't pick it up and there's no ramifications for rogue or um, dictatorship, we would end up like Kim Jong Un's regime, or we would look like uh, Putin's regime.
Hmm.
It is not. It's not. It's not like it hasn't happened in this century or in this decade. It's actually happened in right around us every time.
Happened multiple times.
Mm.
Yeah.
But for us in the Western world, this is new. It was always other countries did this.
Well, one of the intriguing questions is to see why and how did it happen that media was suppressed in Russia? I mean, was it just natural?
Uh, Historically, I think probably, yeah. Like you go back to the age of the Tsars, was there free media? Almost certainly not.
Yeah, that's a little bit further back, though. I mean,
But
at
you
the
need some sort of history of it before we can talk about it being suppressed. If it was never there in the first place, it certainly wasn't there in the Soviet era.
it was destroyed in the Soviet era. Yeah, but there
Yeah,
was a period of perestroika.
yeah. Unfortunately, Russia fell apart rather than getting freedom. Those years under Boris Yeltsin.
Yeah, well, actually, Boris Yeltsin basically ceded it to the existing dictator.
Hmm. So yeah, Russia had, to me, had two brief periods of hope in the 20th century. Immediately after the Russian Revolution, could the revolution turn into something positive? And by the time Lenin had died, no, it hadn't. And then perestroika failed. Apart from that, Russia's had no hope for the entire 20th century.
And longer.
Hmm.
So Australia seems to be in a relatively reasonable place at this point in time, right? A few years ago, prior to Albanese basically winning a majority, there was 10 years of constant rubbish about climate change, constant rubbish about refugees, and no one was basically calling it out.
Well, a few people were, but the general population weren't, which is, that's indicative of what the general population is like. They've Bill Clinton said it. You know, it's the economy, stupid. So
Mm.
after some years of Labor disruption, the ordinary Australians didn't trust Labor, so the Liberals kept getting back in, and they didn't completely screw the economy up. So that wasn't enough to throw them out. And all
So,
those
I
other
mean,
issues that people say matter don't matter enough.
so the economy matters more than anything else, is basically what you're saying.
But people, they look at the economy in terms of my personal well-being. You know, can I afford a house? Can I send the kids to school? That bread and butter stuff.
Yeah, they don't have the foresight to look forward into the waves that are coming, the Titanic crashing that's likely
There's
to
that,
occur.
but it's also most cultures, the vast majority of people just want to live in their private lives. They're not interested in the big picture stuff. They begrudgingly look at it. They'd rather go and watch a football match or go to the pub or whatever. The number
Yeah,
of
yeah.
people who are actually engaged in big picture stuff is quite small on both sides.
I'm not sure where I got this, but I do remember someone saying in private conversation that there was a real worry when one of the politicians said, "Oh, I've got to go tune in to 3AW." I think that was,
I heard that. That was from me. Yeah, literally, he said this to a journalist anonymously, that he had to go listen to Sky News, and the journalist asked why, and his response was, "Well, I have to know what my branch membership are looking and hearing." That there seems to be a problem within the Liberal and National parties that, unlike say the US, where you have huge memberships and primaries and things, the membership of parties here is in the tens of thousands, but it looks like the Liberal Party has quite a right-wing bias inside its membership. It doesn't necessarily match the broader population, but you're not going to get pre-selected to become a member of parliament if you don't keep your local branches on site.
So if you don't toe the line from a perspective of actually listening to the Sermon on the Mount, so to speak,
Yeah.
you are going to be outed.
Yeah, because in Australia, we don't have primaries, so the general population don't get to pick the candidates. So if your local branches say, no, we don't like you, you just lost your seat in parliament because they just endorsed someone else.
So the branches still control, even though membership has been plummeting for 50 years.
Well, that's the
So,
point. If your membership has dropped, each member has more power.
interesting viewpoint that you might say that the democracy is actually controlled by a very small number of people who listen to the only things that they want to hear.
To a certain extent in Australia, yeah.
Uh,
The best counterbalance we have to that is compulsory voting and proportional representation. So if any party goes too rogue in terms of their candidates, the general population will punish them. But yeah,
Would you describe that as what's happened to the Liberal Party today? They've been punished.
yeah, I think so. Yeah. So
Eh,
what back in the day, what was it? The battles between the wets and the dries, the moderate liberals and the less moderate liberals. And these days, the less moderates dominate, and moderate liberals are struggling to get pre-selection.
hmm.
Whereas in the Labor Party, they've always had an internal faction system that balances this out better. They tend to more things are about the party conferences and developing a party platform and that type of thing. Their factional system's more formal.
Oh, I don't know. I think the Libs can be just as vicious. They prance around that they're, this broad church. They're not. They're as equally as vicious as the Labor Party can be.
Yeah, at least the Labor Party does it behind closed doors.
Oh, some of the time. It hasn't necessarily done it all the time.
No,
Another perspective is to see what's happening just recently with the Nationals. You're aware of
yeah,
Barnabas.
Barnaby Joyce, and
Barnaby
he's
Joyce, but also
and
zero emissions targets, and they just can't let that one go.
and
Why?
well, yeah, haven't they realized? How can they not realize? How can Sky News keep talking about net zero as a hoax?
Well, Sky News is a bubble, so whatever happens inside the bubble is unconnected to anything outside. Why the politicians in the National Party are still stuck with that? It may be a combination of the personalities of individuals. It's also they're representing country constituencies, and there's a bit more opposition to renewables, particularly wind, particularly in the country because they're an eyesore. And they are that. So they think they're tapping into a vein that might help them electorally.
So it's
Whether
like
it will,
it's a stick for them.
yeah,
So the stick to hit the opposition.
yeah.
And you don't throw that away.
And the Nationals never really have any prospect of getting seats inside the cities. So what the majority of people in the cities think doesn't matter to them very much. Whereas the Liberals need the city voters to get back into power.
Well, they do now.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, with the split of the teal, which is, I guess, the same split off with the Democrats in the past.
Actually, very much the same, a little less formal. What people forget is the Democrats came out of the Liberal Party. Don Chipp took Liberal members off to form the Australian Democrats. The Teals are just a loose alignment because they're all independents. But yeah,
Yes,
similar.
yeah. So I mean, it looks like what is happening is some reality is coming into the fore, but the Liberal Party, if it has any sense of conservatism, is actually losing it by miles because they're basically going right to the edge rather than trying to attract a broad church, so to speak.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
there's
well,
that cursed word again.
what was the famous phrase that Malcolm Fraser used? I never left the Liberal Party. The Liberal Party left me.
Yeah.
If they could get back to being a Liberal Party of Fraser and the founder, Menzies, they'd probably be far more appealing electorally.
Con, you look a little bit surprised or
Oh no, I'm
in
just
thought.
just listening. Just the we've got a upcoming election in a year's time in where we are here,
Where are we?
Victoria.
Victoria. Oh, yeah, yeah. Victorians.
I think due by November next year, and the police officer in charge of the Liberal Party, and just recently he announced a reshuffle again and brought in some new people. And the issue, I guess, in Victoria is because the Libs, the branches are shrinking. One area where the branches aren't shrinking is membership of religious groups in Victoria, in the
Yeah.
Liberal Party.
There's been a movement by some fairly extreme religious groups to dominate the Liberals, certainly in Victoria.
Yeah. So that they re-announced their front bench the other week, and I had a look, and they've got like 4 pastors in their front bench. So, what the fuck? Really? They're all the equivalent of a priest.
Yep.
Where's your Liberal Party accountants, solicitors, businessmen? Where are they? They're all religious people. So, you know, and if the cycle turns, that could be back in power within the next few years.
Possibly. Like the Labor government's been on the nose here in the state for a while. It's old and tired, and it's done some good things, but it's also managed to mess up the books for the state and other things. So
Oh, yeah. Oh, what is this old and tired crap that people?
no, the nature of what politics and being a politician is must be exhausting. And I don't know how some people have 30-year careers in politics and don't just burn out.
I can't believe how that's possible, you know. I mean, it is because you see the people there, but it it is such a painful job. I guess I'm not suited to that style of placating the masses, in a sense.
No,
But
I don't buy this at all. The Libs have dominated politics in this country. Where's the old, tired and staid for them? It's not. It's not applied to them. It's always applied to Labor.
No, not necessarily. You go back through history. Labor had its schism in the 1950s when the DLP split off, and that effectively kept them out of power through the 60s. But by 72, when Gough Whitlam came to power, the Liberals had run out of steam.
And they were back in 3 years.
Yeah, but that was really Labor in those 3 years screwed up. They tried to do too much, too quickly, too dramatically, and people just didn't want to buy it. And Malcolm Fraser seemed safer. He still seemed like an old school Liberal.
And so they voted in a tired and staid and out of ideas party that's been in power for 40 years. I mean,
But they had the Hawke Keating years, and that was actually, what was it, 4 cycles? And they changed the country. I don't necessarily agree with everything they did, but they changed the country.
yeah.
and the difficulty we have today is actually we need to change the country. It is not something that conservative approaches will allow us to survive or thrive.
Yeah. The criticism I'd make of Labor today is they're not reformist enough.
Yeah.
having been probably been bitten by electoral failure and things like that. They're doing some good stuff, but not enough of it.
because
We'll get them re-elected.
they're terrified of giving the opposition a stick.
Well, I'm going to stop the broadcast for the moment, and we'll see how we go because we'll move into the next thing the next time, and we'll continue on the other stuff that we're going to do. So, thank you if you have been watching. If you haven't been watching or you look at this as a recorded, I hope you enjoy it. Bye for now.